Welcome to the Family Bible Journey. Did you know that when you subscribe to the podcast and follow us on Facebook and Instagram, that you actually make it easier for other people to find the Family Bible Journey? So please follow and subscribe. And thank you for listening. This is episode 278, season 1 of the Family Bible Journey Old Testament podcast. Today we're looking at Job chapter 2. The title of today's podcast is Curse God and Die. And our key verses for today are all of chapter 2, where we read, "Again there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them to present himself before the Lord. And the Lord said to Satan, 'From where have you come?' Satan answered the Lord and said, 'From going to and fro on the earth, and from walking up and down on it.' And the Lord said to Satan, 'Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, who fears God and turns away from evil? He still holds fast to his integrity, although you incited me against him to destroy him without cause.' Then Satan answered the Lord and said, 'Skin for skin. All that a man has he will give for his life. But stretch out your hand and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse you to your face.' The Lord said to Satan, 'Behold, he is in your hand. Only spare his life.' So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord and struck Job with loathsome sores from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. And he took a piece of broken pottery with which to scrape himself while he sat in the ashes. Then his wife said to him, 'Do you still hold fast your integrity? Curse God and die.' And he said to her, 'You speak as one of the foolish women would speak. Shall we receive good from God, and shall we not receive evil?' In all this Job did not sin with his lips. Now when Job's 3 friends heard of all this evil that had come upon him, they came each from his own place: Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite. They made an appointment together to come to show him sympathy and comfort him. And when they saw him from a distance, they did not recognize him. And they raised their voices and wept. And they tore their robes and sprinkled dust on their heads toward heaven. And they sat with him on the ground 7 days and 7 nights. And no one spoke a word to him, for they saw that his suffering was very great." This is the word of the Lord. So in chapter 1, Satan had incited God to inflict grievous financial and family losses on Job, taking from him all of his earthly wealth and the lives of his 10 beloved children. And here in chapter 2, Satan again incites the Lord against Job, and God grants Satan permission to afflict Job's flesh with all manner of sores and diseases, so that the suffering is no longer simply an internal emotional suffering of the loss, but now it is an internal physical suffering and grievous pain that he cannot get away from. And as we continue our discussion of Job, a reminder of one of the things that we mentioned in our last Old Testament podcast episode is that God allows evil, but he is never the author of evil. And that is so important for us to recognize, because it is impossible for us to be able to reason out or rationalize this conversation between Job and God. It is not ours to know exactly why it was that God allows this to happen to Job. And so we have to acknowledge the limitations of our own understanding. We can speculate about why it is that God allows things to happen, but we can never know on this side of eternity God's motives or the answer to the question why in many cases. And the fact that this righteous man apparently is allowed to suffer tremendous emotional loss, financial loss, and now experience the depths of physical pain in his own body. It is just something that I am not sure that we're ever going to find satisfactory answers to on this side of eternity. But in all of this, it is important for us to recognize that it is sin and Satan that are the cause of all human suffering. In a godless and faithless age that we live in, people are more often going to blame God for the evil and the bad and the injustice they see in the world than they are to give him credit for the good and the love and all of the virtuous things that we see in this world. And this is a tremendous tragedy, but it is, I would say, the narrative of our time. And Job is a good example for us in this because he accepts this lot from the Lord. He doesn't like it, but he accepts it. Job's wife, on the other hand, she embodies and epitomizes the attitudes of many people when they see the righteous suffering. In verse 9, Job's wife accuses Job of doing something to cause this terrible calamity that has afflicted not only him, but her as well. She says, "Do you still hold fast to your integrity? Curse God and die." And then she leaves him. And so not only have Job's children been taken away from him by death, but in this episode, his wife leaves him in his suffering, in this calamity. Instead of honoring the vow, "till death do us part," or "in sickness and in health," she gets up and leaves, which I think may in some ways have been an even worse pain than had she lost her life along with the children. Because the death of a marriage, it can happen in a variety of ways. When one spouse leaves the other for any reason, that is a horrendous loss, where the living former spouse is then a living reminder and a specter of a marriage that once was. And so after Job's wife leaves him, he is joined by 3 friends. And these 3 friends, by the way, who have come to comfort him, are going to, in some ways, actually multiply Job's suffering through the course of this book. On chapter 2, verse 11, I have a note where I have friends written in quotation marks, and then I have or frenemies, because these friends, even though they are proving faithful and they have come to join Job in his suffering and to comfort him, they are going to, throughout these discourses in the coming chapters, going to share thoughts and words of earthly or worldly wisdom that are not always going to be accurate and are going to come from a relatively selfish motive, I'm going to suggest in the coming episodes. But nonetheless, they are here. And in chapter 2, we see that they sit for 7 days and 7 nights, not saying a word to Job because of the extent of his suffering. And so in this chapter, they are good friends. In my note on chapter 2, verse 13, it says, "The presence of loved ones is often the best medicine when we are suffering." And that is absolutely true. Whether it is you suffering yourself, or if you have a family member or a loved one who is suffering, oftentimes the best medicine is simply for them to be in the presence of those that they love. And I have seen this play itself out at countless bedsides of those who are either tragically ill or even facing the prospect of physical death. And when they are surrounded with people that they love, there is such a comfort there. It is such a wonderful embodiment of God's love for that person in their life's worst hours that it often gives them great strength and great courage to face even the unknown. And so I want to encourage you as a person of faith, if you have a loved one who is suffering or ill, that if you don't maybe know exactly what to say to comfort them, don't worry so much about what you say or how you say it, but rather recognize the value of you simply being there for them. Because when we are present with our loved ones, when they are suffering, we are a visible reminder of God's presence with them, and we are a great example of the love of God that is always there for them, but that we sometimes question and doubt, especially when we need it the most. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to share your faith in a super easy way, just click the share button so you can send an episode to a friend in a text or an email or post on social media. Our blessing for today. May you be blessed by and blessed to be a faithful friend to those who suffer. Amen.